Champaign County Agriculture Today with your host, Dennis Riggs.
Hello and welcome to Champaign County Agriculture Today. My name's Dennis Riggs. I'm glad you tuned in today because we're going to talk about a very important topic that I hope will pique your interest and answer some of those questions you often thought about when we talk about agriculture. For example, if you watch the news in the last 2 or 3 days, you probably noticed that during the newscast, usually around the 6 o'clock newscast, they talk about the price of corn and they talk about the price of soybeans on the Chicago Board of Trade. You go, how could possibly anything happening in Chicago have anything to do with me? Well, today we're going to answer those questions about farm income, about the price of commodities, and about the whole overall picture as far as how do farmers make their money here in Champaign County and around East Central Illinois. So thanks for tuning in with us today. I hope you'll enjoy this program. We've got two great people that are experts in this field, and they're going to be able to answer those questions or at least give us some great conversation about farm income and farm economics. With us today on our program, we have Jerry Watson. Jerry, the farmer down in the southern part of Champaign County. Good. I'm going to let you give the details of that. Well, no, just tell us. Jerry, tell us about your farming operation, where you're from, and kind of what got you into farming.
Right. Well, I farm down in the southern part of Champaign County. Just north of Villa Grove, and I farm with my brother and my nephew and my son. So there's 4 of us in our operation, and we basically grow a lot of specialty corn for Frito-Lay. We grow a lot of white corn and yellow food grade corn. And we also grow seed beans and seed corn for Pioneer.
Now, Jerry, did you just get into farming a few years ago, or how long have you been in the farming business?
Well, it seems like a few years ago, but it's basically been my entire life. I've been involved in the farm. My dad settled on that farm back in 1960, and through high school, of course, I always worked on the farm, and then after college, came back and actively got involved with the farm as a participating partner. So, yeah, I've been there for 35 years since college.
If you say that real fast, it doesn't sound so long.
Yeah,
35
right.
years. Okay.
It's gone fast.
Okay, good to have you with us today. The other guest on our program today is Dwight Robb. Dwight's with the Farm Business Farm Management. We're going to talk about FBFM a lot today. It's a lot quicker to say FBFM than Farm Business Farm Management at the University of Illinois. Dwight, welcome to our show. Tell us about your association with FBFM.
FBFM is a not-for-profit organization here in the state of Illinois. Illinois is covered by farm management associations from top to bottom. We have a staff of 61 people that work with about 6,000 people like Jerry across the state of Illinois. Our goal is to be educationally oriented so that we can help operating farmers make financial and management decisions on the farm.
Now, you think of, well, gosh, it's the university, but you're helping individual farmers. That cooperation seems a little bit different. Explain how that maybe got started.
It's a very unique and very wonderful relationship that we have with the university. Back since its inception, FBFM has been a part of or affiliated with the university. At its outset in 1924, it was actually a project that came out of the animal husbandry department at that point in time. It's since grown, and we've not separated from the university, but we have gone off on our own in terms of our management. So we are separate from the university, not for profit, but we are very closely associated with the university. My office is in Mumford Hall in the Ag Econ department. We have a very close relationship with people like Paul Ellinger and Gary Schnitke and Bruce Sherrick and Nick Paulson, the folks who are very involved with production agriculture and things that affect producers on the farm.
Now, your office and your work is there at the university. You're working in a land-grant college. It's been around since, what is University of Illinois?
1860s.
1860s, right. But yet you deal with individual farmers like the Watson operation down there. Has that coordination, who does it help? Does it help the farmers or does it help the university?
Oh, it helps the farmers. Our primary goal is to serve our 6,000 cooperators across the state of Illinois. That by far is our primary goal. A secondary goal is that it provides this data set that some of those researchers at the university can do some work with. Some of the programs that have come out of the USDA, like the Acre program and some of the crop insurance products, the development of those products has been assisted by the data set that researchers can work with. like at the University of Illinois.
So what's going on here is that here you've got a kind of a third party, the folks at FBFM. They're watching over 6,000 books of records across the state of Illinois of typical farms, big farms. What's the range of farms that FBFM covers?
All sizes. Our average for 2008 was 1,049 acres was the average farm size.
And the smallest? If you have the range in there by any chance?
Oh, some of the folks that we still work with, Dennis, would be retired cooperators who might only own 80 acres or 160 acres, and some of those folks are still with us too, and we still provide valuable service to them.
Very good. Well, I know it's a great service. It's been around for a long time. As I talk with farmers, it's a valuable resource for them, because the whole idea of farming is we think about the tractors and we think about the seed and the land and everything out there, but there's a lot of economics involved in farming. Jerry, when you sit down and start planning out your year, how does economics, how do you think about the management of money as well as the management of how much diesel fuel you buy?
Exactly. Well, it's a very time-consuming process, and it's one that probably has as much stress and pressure on the operator because of the numbers that you have to put together to put a crop corn out there. You know, we're looking at $650 an acre to put a crop of corn in, or put an acre of corn in, and we're looking around $450 an acre to put an acre of soybeans out there. So our first reaction is, how are we going to get our money back, plus some, when we make these decisions?
Plus some?
We hope so.
What do you need to plus some?
We
What's
hope
that
there's
all
always
about?
a plus on that. And for the past few years, there has been a plus, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be the plus every year.
People sitting and watching the program today, they may think, well, gee, farming is a job, and you work it pretty hard. We've heard that farmers work pretty hard all year long. They're busy doing things. Now, do you get a check like every Friday? How do you get paid, Jerry?
We get paid at the end of the year if we did a good job with producing a crop and selling a crop.
Okay, so you work all year long, and maybe when there's something left over at the end, maybe you get paid.
At harvest time is when we get paid. So we look forward to the fall.
Dwight, let's ask you then, as far as this whole economic question, why do farmers have to be concerned? I mean, is the dollars involved in putting the crop in, give us some raw numbers here.
Well, it's a high stakes game, Dennis, and it's gotten higher over the last few years. Input costs have gone up markedly over the last few years. It is a high stakes game. What used to be 5 years ago a $45 an acre seed cost is now closer to $90 an acre for seed cost. What used to be $150 an acre cash rent is now at least $250 an acre for cash rent. So those input costs have gone up. The nice part recently is that our commodity markets have held up very well for us, so there has been good profits in the last few years. But you don't have to go back very far in time to find a period when there wasn't much profitability to farming. So it's been nice to have the profitability that we've had in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years when we've had some nice profits on the farm. Hasn't always been there, but it's nice to have that. The variability is so high, Dennis. We've seen $4 corn in the last few years, but we went for a long time, didn't we, Jerry? We had $2 to $2.50 corn. And so it's not always been as good as what it has been for the past few years. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that 2009 is going to shake out quite as good as 2008 and 2007 did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple of good years here, but who knows what the future is going to bring. That's the point I'd like to make is people that are watching this show today and they watch the grain markets reported on television or they hear them on their local radio station, and they hear about the price of corn going up a penny, down a penny, up 10 cents, down 30. Jerry, when you hear those numbers, for most people that don't farm, who cares? You know, the price of canned corn at the grocery store probably doesn't change based on that. How does that affect your operation?
Well, it affects our operation on a daily basis in the sense that when we try to put our numbers together for our cash flow purposes, you know, if we're trying to make at least get our production costs back and then make some, we have to watch what that price is and sell when we feel it's at the high ends of its range, so that we can be profitable and at least, you know, get our production costs. Mm-hmm. So it makes a big difference, the swing in the market, and what affects us so much now than previous years is that swing seems to be a lot more dramatic. Mm-hmm. Before, price of corn might swing with, you know, maybe 15, 20 cents across the entire year. And in today's market, we can see it swing 30, 40 cents in one day's trade.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, this price that you're established for your market, you don't set the price when the corn, in the fall, we see all the grain going into the elevator, the farmers on the roads with their wagons and tractors, and you take it to the elevator, you take it to your bins. How long do you have to make a marketing decision? Is it just that week when you harvest it?
No, you have basically, have the even 12 months before you put the crop in and 12 months after you take it out. You basically have almost a 3-year window that you can sell your grain. Now, most people like to try to wait and sell their crop, percentage-wise, maybe so much early, 20 or 30% before the crop is harvested, and then maybe a little bit more as you're into harvest, and then wait till after harvest when you know what bushels you actually have to price. But that's the challenge of our occupation is trying to determine when we can price this grain at levels that are profitable to us.
A question that might come to mind is how on earth can you possibly price your corn or beans or oats or wheat before you take it to the elevator? How's that done? Just in real simple terms.
Well, you can do it a couple ways, but one thing, you just call the elevator and say, today's price is up a little bit and I can get $4 at the elevator for fall corn, you're going to sell. You just call the elevator and say, I want to sell 10,000 bushels or whatever increment you want. Other ways you can do it is go through stockbrokers and actually trade on the Chicago Board of Trade. That's a little more risky.
There you go. Dwight, when we take a look at farmers and their risk, as Jerry just mentions, are there things they can do to smooth that risk out a little bit? What do you see as you analyze these farms around the state? The futures markets, is there anything else they can do as far as their purchasing of seed or inputs of fuel? Are many farmers doing that, or do they just kind of take what the market bears?
No, they don't take what the market bears. Most producers that are still out there now, we've gone through the 80s, and there was a tremendous exit of the business due to what happened in the 1980s. So most of the operators that are still there are very, very sharp operators that are out there. So no, it's not a matter of taking what's offered to us. It's a matter of, well, as Jerry referred to, not only can we sell crops before and after that crop is grown, we can do the same thing with our inputs too. We can go buy LP gas now for fall. We can now go start to price some of next year's inputs. So we've also got a window of opportunity that we can price our inputs for our crop too, and that's always done strategically so as to price those things at a lowest point if we can. So there's risk on the price side, as Jerry mentioned. There's also risk on the input side too in terms of the price of those inputs. We've had some wildly fluctuating prices of inputs over the last 24 months. Some of the fertilizers that are available to us, their prices have doubled. And now they're back down to more reasonable levels now. Yeah, there's multiple risks there on the farm. Interest rate risk. Fortunately, right now we've been in a low interest rate environment, so that's a good part. But that price risk and in general some of the revenue risk can be mitigated by some crop insurance products that are out there. A very unique thing that's available to production agriculture. We now have the ability to not only ensure how many bushels of yield are produced out there, but we've got the ability to hook a price in with that and ensure a level of revenue per acre on the farm.
A revenue insurance almost. Well, Jerry, golly, it sounds like you've got a daily struggle of looking at how much am I going to price my grain for, and I'm looking for a high there, and how much am I going to buy my LP gas and my diesel fuel? You're looking for a low there. How do you manage that? How can that all take place? You just flip a coin?
Sometimes I might have been better if I had. But,
okay.
But no, it is a risk, but over time and doing it year after year, you try to get into patterns, and you see market. The market's going to have usually higher in the springtime, maybe than through the summer, closer to fall. So you try to pre-sell some at the market high, and then as far as purchasing fuels and fertilizers. There's patterns again where you try to get in there and get on board at the low point of their market. So it's just something that over time you kind of develop the patterns of how you're going to purchase and sell.
I've often had people tell me that, well, farmers never seem to be in a good mood. They're always complaining about the weather or the market prices or the cost of doing business. I guess now we could understand that a little bit better, right? Because all you're trying to do is keep your multi-year, multi-generational family operation afloat.
Well, it's tough in the sense that we go into the year not knowing what our return is going to be. We put all our expenses together, and we're sitting here with this debt of this crop of production and not knowing what we're going to get for it, because we don't know exactly how many bushels we're going to produce. We don't know what price of grain what we're going to get for our price of our grain. So, but we do know that we're going out there with this load of debt that's got to be repaid. And for the most part, we always seem to weather the storm, and it's been a good return. But the problem has been over the last couple of years is that this bar has raised on us. Our input costs have gone up so much compared to what we had a few years ago, and we need higher grain prices to offset these input costs. And that bar is raised, so now instead of borrowing, a farmer may have only borrowed $100,000, now he might have to borrow $200,000 to do the same production. And even though interest rates are low, we're borrowing twice as much money, so it almost makes our interest like double the rate. So it's always a risk, but for the most part, it's been a good return.
Good deal. We've talked about the standard idea of pricing the crop and looking at the market, Chicago Board of Trade or whatever. There's a new thing that a lot of us don't maybe have a good handle on, and that's government farm programs. Government farm programs have been around since the Depression era, back in the 1930s, when the U.S. government says, you know what, we need to stabilize our food supply here in the United States of America so that, by golly, our people don't go hungry, and that's important. Dwight, you've got some numbers that over the years that amount of support has gone up, has gone down. Give us a little bit of background on government price supports and how that affects Jerry's income.
Well, what they're designed to do is kick in when revenues on the farm are low. That's the whole idea behind those government programs. There's various mechanisms that do that. They're about 3% of gross farm returns. They've been as high as 20% of gross farm returns. So are they important on the farm? Absolutely, they're important on the farm. They're not quite as significant in terms of their impact on our revenues, but they certainly have been in the past, and they certainly have been in the past in those time periods where we've had lower commodity prices.
Mm-hmm. Just recently, what's the trend? Let's say in the last 4 or 5 years, has the trend been going up or going down as far as the amount of percentage of the gross farm income?
It's been going down for the last 2 or 3 years. I'll even say it that way, Dennis, because we have had relatively good commodity prices for the last 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. So when commodity prices tend to be good, that tends to give us good revenue on the farm, and those government payments tend to be lower. When the prices are lower and or yields are lower and the revenue is lower on the farm, or when those government payments, those commodity payments, tend to be higher.
Jerry, we've seen here just in the last few years several government programs, whether it's been the Cash for Clunkers program for cars or Medicare, Medicaid. Now, these payments that a farmer may receive from the government, depending upon the prices and the bushels, are those just a check that comes? Is it very easy, or are there strings attached?
Well, there's definitely some strings attached. You have to report into the FSA office here in your county to report your acres. And
FSA, that's
the Farm Service Agency.
Farm Service Agency, which is a government USDA office, not affiliated with any company or anything.
No, this is through the government, and each county has one that that if you farm within that county, you report to that office. Mm-hmm. Well, you have to turn your paperwork in, get registered, and then you get your payment will come. You can either have it set up once or twice a year to when you get paid. You can get part of it before the crop goes in to help alleviate some of the expense costs of our inputs, and then you get the other half of it in just before fall.
Mm-hmm. So this is a program that a farmer has to go in and apply for. It's not automatic.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what kind of information do they require you to provide from your farming operation?
They're going to want to know how many acres of corn that I produce or that we plant, and how many acres of beans that we plant.
Okay. And then, of course, Dwight, let's go on to how that actually works through. That money comes in. Are there strings attached to those funds, or is it just simply to help the farmer pay their production expenses?
It's simply to help farmers pay production expenses. There's no strings attached to it. Once we get it, it would go into an operator's checking account. Be available to be spent just like any other funds in a checking account. It's not a loan; it doesn't have to be repaid. Any of those type of things.
Let's talk about things that a farmer can do. If your office is working with 6,000 farms across the state of Illinois, is there such thing as an average farm? Can you explain to us what an average farm would be in your record system?
There is such a thing as an average farm, and we obviously have the ability to compile and summarize that data. That's where I came with 1,049 acres is the average farm. I happen to know that's what it was for 2008. Average farms can be a little bit deceiving because there are obviously extremes to that. I mentioned the 80 to 160 acre farms that we work with. There's also 3,000 and 4,000 acre farms that we work with. So one does need to be careful about averages. But we do compile that data. We do quite a bit of work out of our office with the help of Gary Schnitke and Paul Ellinger in the department. That's how we generate all the cost pictures that we do. That's how a guy like Gary Schnitke generates the budgets for next year's crop for 2010. Gary Schnitke is already sitting down looking at what we have in place for 2008, what 2009 expenses are. He's already putting budgets together for 2010 so that a producer can sit down and start to pencil out what will it cost me to produce next year's crop.
And this is all basically as a part of the University of Illinois Ag Economics Department. Is that what they're trying to supply this information to, or who puts this all together?
Well, Gary Schnitke puts most of that together, but Gary Schnitke puts most of that together with the assistance of that large data set that comes from FBFM.
Okay.
Like I say, our main purpose within FBFM is to assist with financial decision making. So we live in a world of balance sheets and income statements, sources, uses, those type of things. We'll look at a series of those documents together to assist the producer in knowing are the trends getting better, are we doing the right things the right way, or are there areas that we can improve upon?
I've heard that the FBFM numbers are sometimes looked upon by the United States Department of Agriculture as far as how are farmers doing? Where is their income sources? Can you give us any input? Does this information get back to the USDA as they look at farms nationwide?
No, well, the USDA does review that information. Our data is not part of the USDA data. We're completely separate. Their data is statistically valid. They have different sampling methods that they go through. Our data is what it is. Our data is good data. We go through a pretty rigorous process with our 60 field staff across the state in terms of then certifying that data so that it's good and complete and typical data. Our data is good data, but it's not the same thing as what the USDA does.
Well, I would think that the information that you guys receive in your office from Jerry's farm, from other farmers around, is like the real thing. That's the real McCoy.
It is.
What do you think, Jerry? These guys are pulling data off your farm to help put this all together. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it has helped our farm tremendously, because what they do is they do pull data off everybody's farm, and then they can, when they sit down with our particular farm, and we go through line by line item as far as our production costs, and we look at our fertilizer costs, and there'll be a comparative how we compare to what the state average is comparing. And we can look at that and say, boy, you guys are way out of line on your fertilizer. We may need to look at this. Or look at diesel fuel. Or look at seed cost. I mean, every line you can take and compare it to what state averages are, and then you can apply that into your own specific farm to see if you're within, lines, or if there's a flag there that we need to be looking out and maybe look at some other alternatives.
Well, and the one good thing that Jerry gets that he hasn't mentioned yet is those 60 field staff. Jerry's got a fieldman that he works with, and he gets that fieldman's head's worth of knowledge, and that's invaluable. The reports can tell us a lot, but the dependency of our cooperators on their fieldmen to help them make those decisions, that's where FBFM really has an advantage. It's our field staff and what they carry around with them, the knowledge and of how to help people, how to interpret those reports, how to massage those numbers. That's where the real advantage that FBFM has is.
I would guess that advisor, Jerry, is just like your fertilizer advisor or your seed advisor, except this gentleman's or lady, we have some ladies that do that as well, is your financial advisor.
Definitely. He is very instrumental in the decision process that we go through making our farm profitable. Mm-hmm. And we use that information a lot. We go through it, and it's something I like about the FBFM. Does nothing but farm records. Mm-hmm. So they're not out there doing other industry, anything else. They're doing nothing but farm, And so all their expertise comes right back to you.
Let's say you're analyzing the Watson Farm records, and all of a sudden that line that says government farm program payments goes to zero. Who knows why? Politics goes up and goes down. How's that affect? Would that affect your farming operation?
It definitely is going to affect it, but it's something that you would hate to see not be part of your farm income because of I don't know, because of what we do for the government in providing them the information that we do. I feel we need this government program in return. And if they're going to use our numbers and our statistics in world production or U.S. production of grain and affecting our markets, then we need their help with these programs.
Got just a couple minutes remaining, fellas. Let's talk about where the future is headed. Dwight, as you take a look at the numbers and you see, is there a clear-cut direction that farm income and the future of farms like the Watson Farm, is there a clear-cut direction they're going to go, or is it still just kind of a variable based on many different things?
The revenue picture will be variable because we never know what the markets are going to give us in terms of prices. But I think we do know a few things, though, Dennis. I think farms will continue to become larger. I think farms will continue to be more complex than they have been. When I started as a fieldman back in 1987, the business wasn't as complex as it is now. Many farms have multiple entities between corporations, LLCs, partnerships. So the business is just more complex than it used to be, and there's more risk in there. They'll continue to get larger as margins continue to be thin, but that doesn't mean that there's not a rosy future out there for agriculture. I think there'll be more multi-generational family-type businesses out there.
And probably a big reason for that is because of the capital we've talked about here, the many hundreds and thousands of dollars to either get into or plant a crop is just not something that somebody says one day, gosh, I think I'll be a farmer next year. Hard to do that, isn't it?
Very hard to do that. Very hard to do that. The capital requirements are very large.
Jerry, what do you think? Where's the future headed as you look at the future of your farming operation and maybe the youngins in your family? What do they have to look forward to?
Well, I think it's going to be more complex. It's like Dwight said, I think that you'll probably see farms get bigger because of the fact that a lot of these, you just can't jump into it. A lot of the farmers that are retiring are going to be consumed by people that are already in business. So in that sense, the numbers are going to the farms are going to get larger and numbers will go down of participating farmers. But I think the whole system is going to be more complex. You're going to have more regulations that we're going to be dealing with. You're going to have more issues with purchasing and of your inputs at better prices, trying to so that we can be profitable. But it's just going to be an industry that's going to get harder and harder as we go down the road.
A lot of variables involved.
A lot of variables.
Well, I'm glad you were able to take the one variable of your time and spend time with us today here, fellas. I do appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And we thank you for listening to us today. You know, agriculture, as you drive along the highways out there in East Central Illinois and you see the work that Jerry Watson here does and Dwight does at his office, you know there's more to it than just planting a crop and watching it grow. So we appreciate your interest in agriculture and hope you'll tune in again next time when once again we have a chance to tell you what's going on at Champaign County Agriculture today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Champaign County Agriculture Today is brought to you by Champaign County Farm Bureau.